Good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Reina Guerrero, and I am here today with Michelle Haughee. We represent Beacon Therapeutic. We're a non-for-profit social service agency located in Beverly. We've been around since 1968, and we provide a whole myriad of services. For the next 30 minutes, you'll be hearing about some of the great work that Michelle does within our Shelter Outreach Services program, as well as get a little bit more information about Beacon. I'm going to put our contact information on so you can see where we are located. We do have 4 different locations. Our administrative offices are located in Beverly on 103rd Street. Our homeless outreach services are located at 11740 South Western Avenue. That's where Michelle's at. Our Calumet Park location houses our elementary and our high school program. And our Longwood campus on Longwood Drive is our original building. And we house our elementary program as well as our intensive outpatient programs. Beacon's mission is to empower children, I'm putting that up as well, is to empower children and families by helping them find their way to a better future through the provision of accredited educational, mental health, and social services. And just a little bit of background about how Beacon started. We did start in 1968. There were parents who were trying to find a specialized education program for their children, and so they started the program in a school basement, which is great. And then 1971, we moved into our location on Longwood, and since then we really evolved all of our services to really meet the needs of special education children and inner city kids who have special needs. And Michelle, who I have here today, works within our homeless services program. And welcome, Michelle. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Again, this is but this is a live call-in show. First time we get to hear it. The number is 312-738-1060. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to call us. We're eager to hear from anybody that's watching. So Michelle, tell me a little bit. You are the senior clinician in the SOS program.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get involved in this work?
Actually, I met with people from Beacon at a job fair when I graduated from with my master's, and was hired about a month before I graduated. Started out as a therapist in the shelter outreach program. Later, I became a program coordinator. I've been a clinical director, and now I'm senior clinician.
And actually, you're one of those great staff that comes to us and then leaves at some point and then comes back again.
Yes.
Which we're really glad. And I know you're the senior clinician. So what does that mean as the senior clinician?
Other than doing my regular clinical work, going to the shelters, providing mental health services, I also facilitate some of the clinical staffings and do consultations with the other staff if they have questions about their clients, some concerns. I'm there if their supervisor isn't available. Just an extra person on hand to help out.
Which I know is invaluable. And you're a licensed clinical social worker.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, what can you tell me about homelessness in Chicago?
Oh, where to begin? It's a severe problem. Depending on the definition of homelessness, the number can be anywhere from 15,000 to 21,000. And about half of those are in families. The stereotype a lot of people have about the homeless is that it's the mentally ill person with schizophrenia on the corner yelling out to people. And they don't see the families that are in shelters, doubled up with other families, living in their cars. It's amazing the number of children that are stuck in homelessness.
And I know there's, some of the national statistics say the average age of a homeless child is 6 years old. And I know even though the number of homeless singles has gone down, the number of homeless families continues to rise. So clearly how we got involved with homelessness was clearly a number of our day school students were actually residing in homeless shelters. And then that's when we were made aware of this, growing population of homeless families. So we developed the Shelter Outreach Services program, which is where you work. Tell me a little bit, what is SOS? What is Shelter Outreach Services program?
We provide a wide range of services. We do mental health assessments, individual counseling, therapy. We do groups, therapy and skill-based groups. We have a psychiatrist, a psychologist. We try to do whatever we can to complement the services the shelter has, and wrap as many services around the families as we can.
So we're going into, we go into, I think, 27 of the 55 roughly homeless family shelters throughout the city of Chicago. So these are in all the neighborhoods, right?
Yes.
So we're in, what are some of the neighborhoods we're in?
Oh, we're in Uptown. We're in Inglewood. We're in the West Side. We're in Roseland. We've got one shelter we go to that's about a block from Riverdale. So just about all throughout the city.
So we go into the shelters, and we don't operate the shelters, but
No.
we are the trained professionals that are going into the shelters.
We're partners.
We're partnering with the shelters. We're providing assessments to the families, and our goal is to do what with them?
Our goal is to help them get to the point where they can be independent, help them with life skills, budgeting, case management, therapy to help them deal with whatever emotional problems they have, to get them to where they don't need us. That's our goal, is for them to not need us anymore.
Okay. I understand we have a caller. Your question, caller?
Question. Are most of the homeless people, homeless families, are you talking about head of household, single family, under 22?
You know, it's interesting. We have a couple of programs within our homeless services program. There is one program that's specifically targeting young mothers, ages 18 to 25, who have one child under the age of 5. And I think what we found within that FACT project, and we've had Kathy on and other folks from that program in the past, that is a very large and growing population. Within the Shelter Outreach Services program, we're really dealing with any mom who is in any of those homeless shelters that we're working with. I mean, what would you say would be the average age of the moms that we deal with within the SOS program, Michelle?
I would say the average age would be probably 25 to 30, but we've had grandparents that are homeless in the shelters with their grandchildren.
So, clearly it's, our work within the Shelter Outreach Services to go into the shelters, identify those families that need our services. And, clearly you're describing, helping to stabilize the family, helping them deal with whatever issues, domestic violence, substance use, other issues that perhaps contributed to, that led to them being homeless. And then clearly the goal is to stabilize them, but to get them housing.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the challenges, associated with that? What are some of the biggest obstacles there?
The biggest obstacle is affordable housing. There's just not enough. We also, with this economy, it's hard for our clients to find jobs. Even low-paying jobs are very difficult. A lot of our clients don't have a high school education, very little training. Some have never had a job before. So there's a lot going on. They have dysfunctional families that they're connected to. Some, return to their abuser. There's a lot of things that impact them and get in the way.
And so what are some of the strategies that the team adopts to help with that? Because I think that you're right, that can kind of seem overwhelming and just kind of like, it's too much.
We try to meet the client where they are and to find out what their skills are. What are they good at? What do they already have in their toolbox? And try to add to that. Get them into GED programs, get them into training programs, help them find child care, help them find affordable housing, fill out applications. Whatever we can that will help them advance. We do a little bit of everything.
And, you started describing a little bit, it sounds like our philosophy of care. So can you talk a little bit about Beacon's philosophy of care and how that gets implemented in your work?
Basically, it's non-judgmental. It's meeting the client where they're at, being their support without being their savior, helping them become self-sufficient, and using whatever tools we can. We have a great team that all works together, and what resources I know about, I share with others. They share with me. We all support each other because it is difficult work. But it's so worthwhile. I'm
going to actually put some pictures of some of our kids because I think that's when you talk about what makes it worthwhile. How about some success stories? I mean, I think it's very stressful. What keeps you motivated?
The resilience that I see in the clients. they have been through some really horrible things. Some of them have just been traumatized most of their life. But they're still here, and they're still trying, and they're still trying to raise their children and change the pattern in the family so that their children will have a better chance. So they are remarkable families. They just have a lot of barriers in the way. I have a family that recently went into housing. When I met her, she was stuck. Her children had been abused. It was traumatizing for her that her children were abused. And so through time and meeting with me, we got her medication. She's gone from victim to survivor. And has really been able to find that strength that she had and bring it back. And now she's in her own home. She's starting a relationship. She's taking care of her boys.
And I think that's really important. I'd like to talk more about some of the work we do with the kids, but I understand we have a caller.
Question. There's a train of thought out here. I was listening to you say most of the people that may be in the situation don't have their high school diploma. There's a train of thought about maybe we should start penalizing people who don't have their high school diploma. Maybe do such things as if you're not in high school or haven't finished getting your high school diploma, like such as you can't have a driver's license or you cannot get credit. Maybe those sort of things will encourage people to get their high school diploma.
I think, the whole idea of rallying around education is something, currently there's the development of a new plan to end homelessness. And within that plan to end homelessness, they're really talking about bringing in other resources that can help deal with some of these issues. And one of them is the city colleges of Chicago. And, how can the homeless world partner better with educational institutions so that there can be more collaboration and make it easier? Sometimes, particularly with youth homelessness, some of the teens drop out of school because they can't get to school. The schools aren't very receptive to taking them. So sometimes people may want to get their high school diploma, but circumstances prohibit it. Getting into a system, the easier you can make it, the more likely it's going to happen. And I think that's something when we develop our treatment plans with our participants, the goal is, that's one of the things, what kind of training program can they get into? Can they work on their GED? Because that is very, very important. But what we're finding, Michelle, and you're saying there's yourself, even with the high school diploma, you still can't find jobs.
Right.
Or you can't find a job that'll be sustainable, because what are rents running for some of our families?
For a one bedroom can be $600, $700, $800 a month. For some of our clients, that's just too much. So they need a living wage.
Yeah, and I think the living wage is an important feature. Before the caller, I was wondering about some of our children's services. What are some of the children's services that are offered to the SOS families, to the homeless services families?
Well, we have the regular SOS services. Some of us, we do work with children on an individual basis. We also have the TOTS program for 3 to 6 year olds who need a little bit extra help, may have witnessed some domestic violence or had their own trauma. Mom may be severely depressed and not able to really attend to their needs. We have the big IOP. Actually, one of my clients will be transitioning into that program because he just needs a little extra level of help. We have the Early Head Start program. We have our health educator who can work with the moms in making sure the kids get their shots, get their physicals, eat healthy foods, all of these things.
And I know particularly with the SOS program, there's efforts to make sure that, we're monitoring the kids' development, making sure that the kids are on track and getting them extra support. So you mentioned the little IOP program or the TOTS program. It's 3 to 6 year olds. Making sure that, because we know the impact of homelessness on children,
Absolutely.
How it affects their development, their learning, their speech, it affects everything. And so what's helpful about these shelter outreach services is that when we go in there, we're not just working with the family on very concrete things like helping her get her GED or, get the kids' birth certificate so she can enroll them in school. But it's really also making sure that the kids are on track with what they're supposed to be doing. I'm wondering, what are some of the changes that you've seen within the homeless services that we've delivered over the years, having been with us for some time now?
Well, when I started, SOS was pretty small. I think we had just gotten the HUD grant, was just
Goodness.
getting that up off the ground.
91.
So we have, our own program has grown, just SOS, but just the homeless services altogether has just exploded. We've grown so much. You know, we have the FACT team, we have the TOTS program now, we have the health educator, the early Head Start, SHPRA. You know, we've expanded how much we can do to help the clients and what services we can provide.
You know, and I think what you're describing is really the development of more of a comprehensive wraparound system that's responding to, you know, to the families as they're presenting. And who are some of our external partners, some of the shelters that we're in?
We're in the family rescue shelters, both of their programs. We're in 2 programs through Cornerstone. The Inner Voice, we're in several of the shelters that they operate. Let's see, who else? Clara's House. We've been with her for a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Gosh, there's so many.
So we're in 27 of the 55.
Yeah.
And then the staff that work within the shelters, what are their credentials?
Our staff that work in the shelters
Yes.
are either bachelor's or master's level clinicians. We have several that are licensed, either LCSW or LCPC. So we are very professional. We train constantly. And we all have a passion to helping our families. We're not in it for the money. Social services doesn't pay a lot. We do have a very good, we love you, Susan.
Thanks for the shout out.
But, you know, we don't do it for the money. We do it because we have a passion to help our families.
What, you know, earlier you were mentioning the family that you've worked with, you know, and clearly having been doing this work for a long time, you've seen a lot of probably very traumatic things and a lot of successful things. So what keeps you motivated? Is it, you know, going back to those stories? I mean, because I know the staff have been exposed to community violence. You know, community violence, just they happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, some of our staff have gotten broken into, you know, but, you know, they keep on going back. So what motivates you?
For me, I count successes in very small steps. You know, when I got out of school, I was going to save the world and finally realized that if I can help a little bit, I'm good. And with the homeless population, a lot of times they leave the shelter very soon. We have no idea where they're at. But every now and then you get a phone call from somebody that has been close to the program for a couple years, that they just wanted to call and say, hey, I'm doing great, this is what's going on, I'm getting married, or I've just finished school. That's a good feeling. You know, then you know you've really touched somebody.
And I think there's so many little examples like that. I know somebody once said, you know, you can't change the world, but just change your corner of the world. And I'd like to think that the work that we're doing and the work that you've been doing, that's what you've been doing for, you know. And one of the things that we understand with homelessness and homeless families is that many times it's intergenerational. So the folks that we're seeing now as adults, they were homeless. And so the goal would be is that, you know, the children that we're working with now, they will not be homeless in the future. And we're giving them the right skills. What would you say how long some of the families are that we work with?
Some a week. And then I have a family that I've worked with for several years and is just now getting ready to finally get into permanent housing on her own.
Wow.
So, you know, for some it's a very long process, a lot of hand-holding. And some, we see them for one time, but we give them a chance to tell their story. And we validate what they've been through and what they've lost, what they're going through now. Sometimes we're the first time they've ever told their story. So I've had people thank me just for listening.
And I think I would imagine, I know I've heard from some of the staff that it's so hard for the mothers to be given their own time for them to tell their stories, because it's either they're having to be attentive to the children, or they're having to mind the rules, or they're, and I think them being able to get in touch with where they are in a safe space is very powerful for them. And I wonder, is that a good way of engaging them in the work that needs to be done?
I let them, I explain who I am, what's going on, and I just ask, how are you doing? And I leave the door open for them to share whatever they want. I let them know that, it's confidential. I'm not going to tell anyone. I don't work for the shelter, so I'm not going to be telling them what's said, that this is their time. And I have my tissues handy, and they can get out a lot of their feelings, a lot of their pain, and express some of their fears. And it's okay. I'm not going to give them funny looks or tell them they're bad people. I'm going to, be there for support. And they do open up. And a lot of times that's their first chance to tell their story.
And I think it's the telling of the story then that perhaps you can identify some of their goals and some of the things they want to do. And then that becomes the work, I take it, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I guess I'm thinking, what are some of the things within your toolkit that lets you do this work?
I have learned to be empathetic without getting too emotionally involved. Kind of have that objectivity, but caring. And I think, I think about my clients even when I'm not with them. I may give them a call on a day we're not scheduled to meet. How you doing? I have a great support at work. I have a great family that's supportive, that I can kind of let go of whatever I've picked up from the clients, and I have my pets.
That's right. We were talking about your pets earlier, and I think, I think what you're saying clearly, you got to find some way to kind of keep your wits about you.
You do. You have to take care of yourself so that you can be there for your clients.
Well, we have very little time left, so I was wondering if you have any final comments or thoughts or anything you wanted to identify that I hadn't asked you.
The trainings I do. One of the things I also do is I do trainings for the shelters on how to work with people who may be mentally ill, how to recognize the symptoms, how to realize when someone may need more help than the shelter can give them, how to work in a trauma-informed way so they're not triggering someone's symptoms and causing more of a problem.
Yeah, and I apologize. I meant to bring that up because I think the training piece is so important, because when we're going into the shelters, we're seeing a series of things. And I think what we can do is go into the shelters and provide these trainings, and I know you do a whole slew of them, and I know there's another team that can also do them as well. And I think that's important because we're helping them build capacity, and that's how we're impacting the system on a broader level. But that's great. So you have a couple of upcoming trainings.
I do. I'm going to be doing a couple trainings on working with people who may be mentally ill, and also on how to deal with a crisis situation, what to do when a client becomes volatile, and how to help the shelter and the staff be safe.
Yeah. So that's great. Thank you very much. I'm going to try and get in one more piece of information of something coming up. Beacon is happy to be part of the Run Home Chicago run. It's a new run that's going to be on June 10th at 7 a.m. and the goal is to increase the awareness of homelessness. Beacon can be a charity that people can run for, so you can check out the website www.runhomechicago.org. It's a nice opportunity for folks to be involved on the cause of homelessness and help, as well as we have the Beacon Bash coming up July 26th at Joe's Sports Bar. If you're interested, you can contact Peggy at 773-298-6441. Michelle, thank you very much. I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And then next week we will be back again. Thank you very much.